Hello, welcome back to Black Book Stacks. I'm your host, Hoshonda Sanders. As you can see, I'm doing something a little different with my hair because I did not have any Christmas decorations this year. So I became the Christmas decoration. As I put it on Instagram, I am the tree that I plan to decorate. So there you have it. I hope all of you had wonderful holidays if you celebrate any of the things that have been happening in December. And I wanted to just quickly do a video about the most recent book I finished, which is The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr., also known as the son of Baldwin. And I loved it. It is a novel that is about two enslaved young men, Isaiah and Samuel, and they are on a plantation where there is an understanding of their relationship to each other, but not necessarily, sort of spoken language around queer intimacy in the way that we talk about queer love and togetherness now. So, the novel is broken down into chapters in a biblical, scriptural way, and it even features there's sort of a spiritual, mystical element to it. So it features a king who is a woman in Africa. So sort of we go back to before slave times, and that reminded me of She Would Be King, I think obviously because of the title, but less literally because of the way that the story grapples with sort of gender bending norms in culture, in Black culture, and African culture, specifically in African American culture. I kept thinking about Toni Morrison, and I think that this book is going to draw comparisons to Toni Morrison's style, and I understand those comparisons. I have been resistant to those comparisons in my own mind, in part because, in publishing, there is always the temptation to replace our elders and our shining lights with the newest Black author. This is no shade toward Robert Jones Jr. at all. It is indeed a very beautiful book. I've been talking about it since, not even the middle. I think I got the galley in November. So I've been talking about it for a while, raving about it, both, publicly and privately. So the language can be very much Robert Jones Jr.'s and reminiscent of some of the themes that Toni Morrison tackled so well without him being the next Toni Morrison. So I guess that's my only disclaimer, is that I hope that, when the book comes out, it's scheduled to be released on January 5th, 2021. We'll see what the reception is to that. But I think also that comparison registers another important point, which is that, in the blurb, Marlon James says it's glorious what the American novel is, should do, and can be. And I agree 100% with that. I think that, what you hope for in a novel is that, especially a novel that fills gaps, as Toni Morrison provoked us to do as writers and as readers, but specifically as Black creators. She said, you know, if there is not a book that you want to read out there, then you are the one to write it. Paraphrasing. But, you know, so I feel like Robert Jones Jr. must have taken that very literally and was like, yes, you know, as I have as a writer. It was like, oh, there's not a book out there that I want to read. I'm going to write the book that I want to read, or that I wanted to read when I was a kid, in the case of my children's book. So, you know, that said, I loved the creativity of imagining the enslaved Black men who must have existed, right? That we have not read about in literature up to this point, really, in any kind of humane and thorough way. There are also white people who have same-sex interests, and that is also touched upon, which is just for some reason, right? Like the American imagination, when it comes to the fullness and the diversity in many senses of the word, the diversity of relationships and ways of relating to one another, both inside and outside of slavery, has been so limited that it was a revelation to read a character who wanted to seduce both Isaiah and Samuel. I loved the spiritual dimension of the book probably the most of all, because what I came away from reading the book with was there is this spiritual dimension to love. There is this revolutionary dimension to love that really makes you feel like you can overcome the most harsh, brutal, despair-laden, hopeless circumstances. And so I felt like he really captured that. And also really made me question, you know, how there has been a gap in literature that has lasted for this long. I mean, 2021 is what a long time, right? For us to not have imagined same-sex love in printed form until now. So, yeah, I mean, I think their physicality, their tenderness with one another, the passive acceptance and maybe passive aggressive resistance to what they are and how they relate to each other by Black women across generations in the book is also really fascinating and interesting and rendered really well and accurately, I thought. So those are my thoughts on The Prophets. You should definitely pick it up. It's been blurred by all kinds of fancy people. Oro Kwan, Ocean Wong, Marlon James, as I mentioned. So it's definitely one to check out. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are. I believe that this is Robert Jones Jr.'s first book, or first novel, I should say. I know that he has a very active online presence. And so I'll be excited to also see what their reaction is to the book. But that is what I have for you as it relates to The Prophets. If you're looking forward to it, I'd love to hear about what your excitement is. If you've already read it, I'd love to hear those thoughts too. And in the meantime, I will see you again shortly. Keep reading.